I stared at the papers in my hands, unable to believe the level of calculated betrayal unfolding before my eyes. My name is Daniel Hayes, and I'm 35 years old. Each morning, I wake before dawn to review construction plans before making breakfast for my daughter. Lauren, my wife of 8 years, had methodically planned this ambush for months, transferring funds, documenting fabricated incidents, and constructing a narrative that painted me as someone my own daughter needed protection from. My shoulders tensed as I realized how deliberately she had maintained our normal routine while secretly plotting to destroy everything I'd built. I will not be manipulated by false accusations or intimidated by legal threats. What Lauren failed to understand is that taking what someone loves most doesn't break them. It transforms them into someone willing to fight with unwavering determination for justice. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. I was scanning a set of plans for the Oakwood renovation when I heard tires on the gravel. Not Lauren, she wouldn't be home for hours. I folded the blueprints and stepped onto the porch, squinting in the afternoon sun. A sedan I didn't recognize pulled up, and a man in khakis and a polo shirt climbed out. Something about his careful movements set off alarms in my head. He approached with an envelope thick enough to be a small book. "Daniel Hayes?" he asked, not quite meeting my eyes. "That's me." He thrust the envelope forward. "You've been served." My stomach dropped as I took the papers. They were still warm from the printer, like the lies inside them were fresh-baked. The server turned and walked away without another word, leaving me standing there with my life unraveling in my hands. Behind him, the azaleas I'd planted for Lauren 3 springs ago bloomed bright pink. I remembered her smile when I'd surprised her with them, how she'd leaned into my shoulder and whispered, "Thank you." Now I stood in their fragrance, flipping through pages that cut me open with each line. I sank onto the porch steps, my hands trembling as I read, "Emergency motions, allegations of financial misconduct, demands for exclusive use of our home, my home, the one I'd renovated myself on weekends, and support payments that would bleed me dry." But the line that stopped my breath was buried on page 7. Petitioner requests temporary custody of minor child Emma Hayes and supervised visitation for respondent due to concerns for the child's safety and well-being. Safety concerns? I'd never raised my voice to Emma, let alone my hand. I coached her t-ball team. I built her treehouse. I checked under her bed for monsters and knew exactly how she liked her pancakes. Chocolate chips in the shape of a smile. I read it again, hoping I'd misunderstood. I hadn't. My confusion crystallized into something harder as I continued reading. Lauren wanted millions. Specifically, she wanted half of the Riverview development deal I'd been working toward for 5 years. The deal that was finally about to pay off. The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze as I paced the house, reading and rereading those papers until I had memorized every false accusation. Every now and then I'd stop and look at a family photo, wondering when exactly my wife had become a stranger. Just after 6, I heard Lauren's SUV in the driveway. I stood on the porch, divorce papers in hand, as she climbed out of her white Range Rover, the one I'd surprised her with last Christmas. She wore the neutral expression of someone picking up dry cleaning, not someone who'd just dropped a nuclear bomb on our family. "You got them," she said, walking past me toward the front door. I followed her into the kitchen, where her favorite blue Dutch oven still sat on the stove from last night's dinner. A dinner where she'd laughed at Emma's joke about dinosaurs and touched my hand across the table. "Why, Lauren?" My voice was steadier than I felt. "Why did you tell a judge I'm a danger to Emma? We've argued about money, not violence. This is a lie." She set her purse on the counter and finally turned to look at me. Don't play innocent, Dan. You're about to cash out on Riverview, and I'm not walking away with scraps. I built this life with you. I earned half. You earned it doing what, exactly? I felt my voice drop low, the way it did on job sites when a subcontractor tried to cut corners. Picking tile samples? Going to brunch with Jason while moving money out of our joint account? I have the bank alerts, Lauren. Her eyes flashed. Don't you dare throw Jason in my face. If you'd been a real husband. A real husband, I cut in, because I wasn't going to let her rewrite our history. A real husband cooks for his kid, builds her a swing set, pays the mortgage, and doesn't have to find out his wife emptied an account 2 days before filing. A real wife doesn't call a process server on the father of her child, and then lie to a judge. I'm protecting myself, she said, louder now, chin tilted up defiantly. You control the money. You control everything. This is how I get free. You're not getting free, I said, and I felt the truth of it settle like concrete. You're getting caught. She laughed. Short, sharp, mean. You think your little prenup saves you? Please. I know about your trusts. I know about the friendly loans. I know what's coming from Riverview, and I'm not leaving without my share. The next morning, I drove to Ana Delgado's office in a daze. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lauren's face. Not angry or cold, but smiling the way she used to. Those memories felt like a trick now, a long con I'd fallen for. Anna's office sat in a renovated Victorian downtown, the kind of place where the woodwork alone would have cost a fortune. Her assistant led me to a conference room where sunlight streamed through tall windows. The walls were lined with law books and case files, organized with military precision. When Anna walked in, she carried a leather portfolio and moved with the quiet confidence of someone who'd seen 1,000 battles like mine. No wasted movements, no drama, just efficiency. Mr. Hayes, she said, extending her hand. I've reviewed the documents you sent over last night. Let's talk strategy. I sank into a chair across from her. Call me Daniel. And I need to know if I'm going to lose my daughter. Anna sat down, opened her portfolio, and looked me directly in the eyes. Not if I can help it. And I can help it. She pulled out a copy of our prenuptial agreement. This is solid. Lauren had her own attorney review it before signing. It clearly states your business interests remain separate property, along with any growth or development of those interests. She claims it doesn't cover Riverview because that deal is happening now, during our marriage. Anna nodded. She'll try that angle. But the prenup specifically covers your development company and all future projects. The question will be whether she can prove she contributed meaningfully to Riverview's success. She didn't, I said flatly. She picked paint colors for the model unit once. That's it. Good. Anna made a note. Now, about these financial transfers. We need a forensic accountant immediately. I recommend Priya Shah. She specializes in high-conflict divorces and can trace every penny Lauren has moved. Lauren transferred $250,000 2 days before serving me, I said, the number still making my stomach clench. From our joint account into something in her maiden name. Anna's pen stopped mid-note. That's bold, and potentially very problematic for her. The court doesn't look kindly on that kind of financial dishonesty, especially pre-filing. She reached for her phone. Let me see if Priya can meet us today. 3 hours later, I sat across from Priya Shah in a small office downtown. Where Anna projected calm authority, Priya radiated focused intensity. She wore glasses that she kept pushing up her nose while she typed furiously on her laptop. Digital money leaves digital footprints, she explained, turning her screen to show me a spreadsheet. Bank transfers, credit card statements, Venmo movements, they tell a story. Lauren's story started 2 months ago with small transfers that grew larger. The $250,000 was just the finale. My chest tightened. 2 months? She's been planning this for 2 months? Priya nodded, her expression sympathetic but professional. At minimum, I'll need account access to trace everything, but we'll find where the money went. People think they're clever, but patterns always emerge. I signed the authorization forms she needed, feeling like I was giving a stranger the keys to my life. But I had no choice. I needed proof. That evening, I stood in our kitchen making Emma's favorite dinner, pancakes with chocolate chip smiles. Lauren stayed in the living room, scrolling through her phone, pretending I didn't exist. The silence between us felt radioactive. "Daddy, can I flip this one?" Emma asked, standing on her step stool beside me. "Sure, Princess. Remember to use your wrist, just like we practiced." I narrated every move we made, keeping my voice light and steady. "Now we flip. Perfect. And here comes the smile." I arranged chocolate chips while Emma giggled. I knew every moment like this mattered now. Evidence of normalcy, of routine, of a father who didn't deserve to be reduced to supervised visitation. Lauren walked through to get water, not acknowledging either of us. "Mommy, look at my pancake," Emma called. Lauren paused, forced a smile. "That's nice, honey." I watched her walk away, wondering how she could switch her love on and off like a faucet. I couldn't. I wouldn't. After tucking Emma in with 2 bedtime stories and checking under the bed, twice, for monsters, I retreated to the guest bedroom where I'd been sleeping. My phone buzzed with an email from Priya. The subject line read, "Preliminary findings, confidential." I opened it to find a detailed report. Priya had already traced the $250,000. It had been transferred from Lauren's new account to a shell company called Marble Heart LLC just yesterday. The company had been formed 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, Lauren had been planning our summer vacation. Or so I thought. I stared at my phone until the screen dimmed, feeling something inside me harden. This wasn't just divorce. This was calculated theft. "Not happening," I whispered to the empty room. "Not a chance in hell." 2 days later, I stood in the lobby of my bank, waiting for the personal banker to finish setting up a new account. I'd thought about this move carefully, not just as a test, but as documentation. Anna had warned me that judges hate financial games, and Lauren was playing a dangerous one. "All set, Mr. Hayes," the banker said, sliding the paperwork toward me. "Your new household account is active with the $5,000 deposited. Would you like online access set up now?" "Yes," I nodded. "And I'd like email alerts for any transactions over $100. The banker typed a few commands. "Done? Anything else I can help with today?" "Actually, yes." I leaned forward slightly. "Is there any way to flag unusual transaction patterns? Or large withdrawals to specific accounts?" His eyebrows lifted, but he kept his professional mask in place. "We can set special monitoring parameters. Would you like to speak with our fraud department?" I shook my head. Not fraud. Just documentation. 20 minutes later, I walked out with everything arranged. Priya would receive direct alerts from the bank, which would generate formal compliance letters for each flagged transaction. Paper trails don't lie. When I got home, I composed a careful email to Lauren. "Lauren, I've opened a new household account for groceries and Emma's needs while we work through temporary orders. $5,000 has been deposited. The card is on the kitchen counter. Daniel Short. Documented. Reasonable. Just like Anna had coached me." Lauren didn't respond, but the card disappeared from the counter by evening. 48 hours later, my phone buzzed during a client meeting. A text from Priya. $4,900 transfer from household to Marble Heart LLC just processed. Description line: food. Compliance letter generated. I excused myself from the meeting and stepped into the hallway, my hands steady even as anger burned through my chest. $4,900. Just under the $5,000 I'd deposited. For food. Later that afternoon, another alert. $100 cash withdrawal from Shoreline Casino ATM. Transaction time, 2:17 p.m. I didn't respond to either message. I just forwarded them to Anna with the subject line, "Documentation continuing." That evening, Emma sat at our dining table coloring while I prepared dinner. The house felt hollow, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Lauren had been gone all day, probably spending what was left of the cash withdrawal. I watched Emma carefully color inside the lines, her little tongue poking out in concentration. The sight squeezed my heart. She deserved better than this quiet war zone. I set down the spatula and sat beside her. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," I said, pointing to her rainbow unicorn. She beamed up at me. "It's for you, Daddy." "Thank you." I smoothed her hair gently. "Emma, you know I love you more than anything in the whole world, right?" She nodded, adding a star to her drawing. "And I promise you, no matter what happens, I will always be here to protect you. Things might change a little bit, but you and me, we're going to be okay." I heard the front door open and close, Lauren's heels clicking on the hardwood. "We're going to have a good life, you and me," I continued softly. "That's a promise." Lauren appeared in the doorway, shopping bags in hand. She caught the end of my words and smirked. "Big promises," she said, her voice cool. "Let's see if you can keep them." I didn't look up at her. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. "We will be okay," I repeated to Emma, who was watching us both with those perceptive eyes that missed nothing. The next morning, I met Anna at her office. She was reviewing the bank statements Priya had forwarded. "This," she said, tapping the paper where Marble Heart LLC Food was printed, "is a gift. The casino withdrawal is just icing." She looked up at me. "Lauren's making it very easy to demonstrate financial misconduct. Judges hate this sort of transparent attempt to drain funds." "What's next?" I asked. "Mediation is scheduled for next week. It's mandatory before we can move to a temporary orders hearing." She leaned forward. "Daniel, when we're there, you need to stay as calm as you've been. No matter what she says, no matter how she tries to provoke you. Document. Don't engage." I nodded. "I can do that." "Good," Anna said, checking her watch. "The mediator's office sent over paperwork you need to complete before Friday." As I walked out of Anna's building into the bright morning light, I spotted a familiar figure leaning against a black sedan across the street. Jason Cole, Lauren's friend, watched me with a smirk playing at his lips. Our eyes met for a moment before he slid into the driver's seat and pulled away. The conference room at Fairbanks Mediation Center reminded me of every bank office I'd ever been in. Beige walls, a long, polished table, and chairs that weren't quite comfortable enough to relax in. I arrived 15 minutes early with Anna, settling my notes in front of me. We both knew mediation was a formality we had to endure before getting in front of a judge. "Remember," Anna whispered, "document, don't react." Lauren swept in 5 minutes late, trailing perfume and tension. Beside her walked a tall woman in her late 40s, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my first truck. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back severely, and her eyes scanned the room like she was cataloging weaknesses. "Cheryl Whitman," she said, extending a manicured hand toward Anna. "Representing Mrs. Hayes." Mrs. Hayes. Like we were strangers. I guess we were now. The mediator, a retired judge named Calloway, introduced himself and explained the process. I barely heard him. I was watching Lauren arrange herself, straightening her blouse, touching her hair, the nervous habits I once found endearing. Now they just looked like preparation for a performance. "Let's begin with opening positions," Calloway said. "Ms. Whitman?" Cheryl cleared her throat and sat straighter. Lauren gave up her promising career for this family, she began, her voice polished and practiced. She deserves half of everything they built together. Her contributions as a homemaker and mother enabled Mr. Hayes to focus entirely on his business. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep my expression neutral. Lauren had quit her marketing job 6 months after we married, not because we decided she should stay home, but because she hated the office politics. She'd never mentioned returning to work. Our proposal is simple and fair, Cheryl continued. Lauren keeps the house, primary custody of Emma, with Daniel on alternating weekends, spousal support for 5 years, and 50% of the Riverview development proceeds. I felt a flash of heat rise up my neck. The Riverview deal was mine. Years of work, relationships I'd built, risks I'd taken. Lauren had contributed exactly nothing to it. Anna smiled slightly. That's quite ambitious, considering the prenuptial agreement your client signed, which we believe is unconscionable and therefore unenforceable, Cheryl replied, without missing a beat. Lauren leaned forward then, looking directly at me for the first time. You want to be free? Great. Be free on your own dime. The mediator shifted uncomfortably. Let's stay on track. You won't even fight me, Lauren continued, her voice sweet enough to rot teeth. You're too soft. I met her gaze steadily. You served me on my front step, I said, keeping my voice level. You lied to a judge. You tried to buy yourself a lifestyle with my kid as collateral. You don't get kindness from me anymore. You get consequences. The room went silent. Lauren's eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't expected me to speak at all, let alone with such cold intensity. We're clearly at an impasse, Cheryl said, shuffling papers. My client's position is firm. As is ours, Anna replied. The rest of the session went nowhere. 2 hours of circular arguments and thinly veiled threats. When Calloway finally called it, declaring us at an impasse, I felt relief wash through me. I'd made it through without losing my composure. That evening, the house felt like a minefield. Lauren slammed cabinets in the kitchen while I tucked Emma into bed upstairs. Why is Mommy mad? Emma asked, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I smoothed her blanket. Sometimes grown-ups have big feelings, I said carefully. But it's not about you, okay? You didn't do anything wrong. Are you mad too? I managed a smile. I'm just tired, sweetheart. But I'm not mad at you. Never at you. After she fell asleep, I retreated to the guest room that had become my space. My phone buzzed with an alert from the bank monitoring system Priya had set up. Despite the court's freeze order on transfers, Lauren had attempted to move $10,000 from our remaining joint investment account to her personal account. I stared at the alert, a strange calm settling over me. The transfer had been blocked, Priya's safeguards were working, but the attempt itself was damning. Lauren was still trying to drain accounts even after being explicitly ordered not to by the court. I printed the alert, hole-punched it, and added it to a growing binder of evidence. The stack was getting thicker by the day. Each page, a nail in the coffin of Lauren's case. As I closed the binder, I realized Lauren would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. But neither would I. Not when Emma's future hung in the balance. A month later, we arrived at the temporary orders hearing. The courtroom felt smaller than I'd imagined, with polished wood benches and the steady hum of the air conditioning. I straightened my tie, the same blue one I'd worn to sign the papers for my first renovation loan, and tried to look calm. Judge McCarthy entered, a stern-faced man in his 60s with reading glasses perched on his nose. I stood when instructed, then sat again, hands folded in my lap to keep them from fidgeting. Anna went first, methodically walking through our evidence. She had a way of making complicated things sound simple, like she was just pointing out facts everyone could see. Your Honor, in the month before filing, Mrs. Hayes transferred $247,500 from joint accounts to a personal account opened without Mr. Hayes's knowledge, Anna said, sliding documents forward. From there, funds were moved to an LLC called Marble Heart, which has no employees, no office, and appears to exist solely to hide marital assets. Lauren shifted in her seat. I kept my eyes on Anna. Furthermore, Anna continued, after the court's initial order freezing accounts, Mrs. Hayes attempted another transfer of $10,000, which was flagged by the bank's compliance system. Judge McCarthy reviewed the documents carefully, occasionally glancing up at Lauren and Cheryl. When Cheryl rose for her turn, she tried to spin the transfers as financial protection and insisted Lauren needed exclusive possession of the house for stability. She painted me as controlling, claiming Lauren feared being left with nothing. The judge removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Ms. Whitman, what services did Marble Heart provide to justify payments of nearly $250,000? Cheryl hesitated. Financial consulting, Your Honor. And the documentation for these services? We're gathering those records, she replied smoothly. Judge McCarthy looked unconvinced. He spent 30 minutes reviewing all the paperwork before delivering his ruling. The court finds insufficient grounds for exclusive possession. Both parties may remain in the residence until further order. The regular custody schedule will continue, with Mr. Hayes having Emma Monday through Thursday and Mrs. Hayes from Friday through Sunday. He looked directly at Lauren. All financial transfers must cease immediately. Any violation will result in sanctions. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Emma would stay with me most of the week. Lauren couldn't kick me out. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. Outside the courtroom, Lauren brushed past me without a word, but I caught the flash of anger in her eyes. For the first time since getting those papers on my doorstep, I felt like I'd won something back. The following weeks settled into an uneasy routine. I slept in the guest room, keeping my clothes in a single dresser and my toiletries in a travel kit. Every morning, I'd wake early to make Emma's lunch, carefully cutting her sandwich into triangles the way she liked. "Daddy, can I have the star cookie cutter today?" she asked one morning, still in her pajamas with cartoon cats. I smiled, reaching for the drawer where we kept the cutters. "Sure thing, pumpkin." The smell of peanut butter and grape jelly took me back to my own childhood lunches, brown paper bags with my name scrawled across the top in my mother's handwriting. I wondered if Emma would remember these mornings someday. Priya called me twice a week with updates. "I've traced payments from the Marble Heart account," she told me during one call. 3 jewelry purchases totaling $14,700, 6 different hotel charges at the Westin downtown, and a winter trip to Vail in January. "Vail?" I repeated. "I never went to Vail." "No," Priya said carefully, "but Jason Cole did. His credit card shows matching dates and locations." I gripped the phone tighter, but kept my voice steady. Document everything. One Thursday evening, I picked Emma up from her dance class. She chatted happily about her pirouettes all the way home, her small hand in mine as we walked from the car to the front door. When we stepped inside, Lauren was sitting at the kitchen table with Cheryl Whitman, papers spread between them. They both looked up, Lauren with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Emma, honey, go wash up for dinner," Lauren said. After Emma went upstairs, Lauren's smile hardened. "We're preparing some new filings," she said, her voice silky. "You should prepare yourself." I looked at the papers, then back at her. "Every lie collapses under evidence, Lauren. You're just digging yourself deeper." Cheryl gathered the papers into a folder. "We'll see you soon, Mr. Hayes," she said, standing to leave. That night, I slept poorly, waking to every small sound in the house. The next morning, I was making coffee when the doorbell rang. A sheriff's deputy stood on the porch, holding a manila envelope. "Daniel Hayes?" he asked. I nodded, taking the envelope with a sense of dread, already forming in my stomach. "You've been served with an emergency restraining order," he said. "You need to vacate the premises immediately." I opened the envelope with shaking hands. The order alleged I had shoved Lauren against a door during an argument 2 days ago. A complete fabrication. "Can I at least say goodbye to my daughter?" I asked, my voice hollow. The deputy nodded, his eyes sympathetic. "Make it quick." I packed my bag with mechanical movements, jeans, shirts, socks, toiletries, while Deputy Lewis stood in the doorway, watching me with professional detachment. My hands trembled slightly as I zipped the duffel closed. "You have 5 minutes to say goodbye to your daughter," he said, his voice not unkind. I nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you." Emma was sitting cross-legged on the living room floor. Her coloring books spread around her like fallen leaves. She didn't look up when I entered, focused on staying perfectly within the lines of a unicorn's rainbow mane. "Hey, Pumpkin," I said, kneeling beside her. She glanced up, her small face breaking into a smile. "Daddy, look, I'm using all the colors." "It's beautiful," I said, my voice cracking slightly. I cleared my throat. "Listen, Emma, Daddy has to go away for a little while." Her crayon paused mid-stroke. "Why? How do you explain a false restraining order to a 6-year-old? I couldn't tell her that her mother had lied to a judge, that she'd invented violence that never happened. "It's just grown-up stuff," I said. "But I promise I'll see you very soon." Her bottom lip quivered. "Are you and Mommy fighting again?" "We're just figuring things out," I said, pulling her into a hug. "But I need you to remember something important, okay? I love you more than anything in the whole world." I felt her small arms wrap around my neck, her face pressing against my shoulder. I breathed in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, trying to memorize it. "Time's up," Deputy Lewis said from the doorway. I kissed Emma's forehead. "Be good for Mommy. I'll see you soon." Lauren appeared from the kitchen, arms crossed, watching the scene with cold satisfaction. I didn't look at her as I picked up my bag and walked out the front door of my own house. The drive to Ben's apartment complex was a blur. Ben had been my friend since high school, the kind of friendship that survives college, marriages, and now, apparently, divorce. He'd offered his spare apartment without hesitation when I'd called him in panic from the driveway. "Stay as long as you need," he said, handing me a key when I arrived. "The place is empty except for basic furniture. I've been using it as a rental, but it's between tenants." "Thanks, man," I said, my voice rough. "I don't know how long this will take." "Doesn't matter," Ben said firmly. "That's what friends are for." That night, I sat on the edge of an unfamiliar bed, in an unfamiliar room, staring at the bare walls. My phone buzzed with a text. "Lauren, you should have just given me what I asked for." 7 words that confirmed everything. This wasn't about fear. This wasn't about safety. This was punishment for not surrendering in mediation. I forwarded the message to Anna immediately, my fingers still shaking with anger. Anna's response came within minutes. "Save this. Do not respond directly. I'm drafting a professional reply that establishes boundaries while documenting her admission. This helps us." I set the phone down and pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes. The mattress felt too soft, the room too quiet without Emma's nighttime sounds drifting through the walls. The next morning, Priya called. "Ben's Ring doorbell," she said, without preamble. "Does it cover the front of your house?" "Yes," I said, suddenly alert. "Ben installed it after someone stole packages last Christmas. I need that footage from the day Lauren claims you shoved her." 2 hours later, we were sitting in Ben's living room, watching the footage on his laptop. The camera had captured the front of my house perfectly. There was Lauren, walking out the front door at 5:47 p.m. on the day in question, balancing a box against her hip, closing the door with her foot. She got into her car and drove away. No argument, no shoving, Nothing. "There I am," I said, pointing to myself appearing on the screen 40 minutes later, returning from picking up dinner. Priya nodded, her eyes gleaming. "This destroys her claim." I felt a strange mix of rage and relief wash over me. She lied under oath. "Yes," Priya said, "and now we have proof." I called Anna immediately. She listened as I explained about the footage, her voice growing more determined with each detail. "I'm filing an emergency motion to dissolve the TRO today," she said. "We'll attach the video and the text message. This is textbook abuse of process." I paced Ben's living room, unable to sit still. "How soon can we get in front of the judge?" "I'll request an emergency hearing. Given the circumstances, we should get one within days, not weeks," Anna said. "Daniel, listen to me. We're going to expose her lie. We're going to force the judge to see what she's really doing. This may be the best thing that could have happened to our case." "How is being thrown out of my house the best thing?" I asked. "Because," Anna said, her voice steady and certain, "Lauren just showed the court exactly who she is." 3 days later, I walked into the emergency hearing with my shoulders back and my head clear. The courtroom had that peculiar hush that comes before something important happens. Judge McCarthy's expression gave nothing away as he reviewed the motion. "We'll hear from Mr. Hayes first," he said, glancing at me over his reading glasses. I took the stand, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Mr. Hayes," Anna began, "can you describe your whereabouts on April 17th between 5 and 7 p.m.? "Yes," I said, my voice steady despite the tension running through me. "I left work around 4:30, picked up Chinese food at Golden Dragon on Maple Street, and arrived home just after 6:30. At any point during that day, did you have a physical altercation with your wife?" "No," I said firmly. "I didn't see Lauren until around 7 that evening when she returned home." Anna nodded. "Your Honor, we have video evidence that directly contradicts Mrs. Hayes's sworn statement. She played the ring footage on the courtroom monitor. The timestamp showed 5:47 p.m., Lauren walking out our front door, balancing a box against her hip, using her foot to push the door closed. She walked to her car without looking back, got in, and drove away. Then the video continued, showing me arriving at 6:32 p.m., carrying a bag of takeout. As you can see," Anna said, "Mrs. Hayes wasn't even at home during the time she claims Mr. Hayes shoved her against the door." Cheryl Whitman rose quickly. "Your Honor, my client may have been confused about the exact time." Judge McCarthy held up his hand. "Ms. Whitman, this isn't about confused timing. This is about an event that apparently never occurred." I glanced at Lauren, who sat rigid in her chair, eyes fixed on the table in front of her. "Furthermore," Anna continued, "I'd like to enter this text message sent by Mrs. Hayes to my client on the night he was removed from the home." She handed copies to the judge and Cheryl. "You should have just given me what I asked for. This suggests a motive for the false allegations." Judge McCarthy read the message, his expression darkening. He looked directly at Lauren. "Mrs. Hayes, your credibility is in serious question here. This court does not take kindly to false accusations, especially those designed to manipulate the legal process." He turned to me. "The temporary restraining order is dissolved, effective immediately. Mr. Hayes may return to the marital residence." I exhaled slowly, feeling a weight lift from my chest. "Additionally," the judge continued, "I'm ordering all parties to maintain status quo on financial matters until our final hearing. And Mrs. Hayes, consider yourself warned about the consequences of misleading this court." When the hearing ended, I stepped into the hallway, feeling lightheaded with relief. Anna patted my shoulder. "Good work in there. Stay focused." I nodded, then stiffened as I saw Lauren approaching with Cheryl beside her. "Dan," Lauren said, her voice suddenly soft vulnerable. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" Anna stepped back, but stayed within earshot. "What is it?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Lauren's eyes were wide, pleading. "This is getting out of hand. Let's just end it. Give me 200,000 and we both walk away. Please." I stared at her, almost unable to believe what I was hearing. "You asked a judge to take my daughter," I said quietly. "You drained accounts. You lied about fear to force me out of my home. You don't get a soft landing from me. You get nothing." Lauren's face hardened. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "I already regret marrying you," I replied evenly. "I won't regret protecting Emma." That evening, Emma bounced around Ben's apartment while I made spaghetti, her favorite. I'd be moving back home tomorrow, but tonight was still our scheduled time together. "Daddy," she asked, coloring at the kitchen table, "why do you and Mommy have to go to court?" I set down the wooden spoon and knelt beside her chair. Sometimes grown-ups disagree about important things, and when they can't figure it out together, a judge helps decide what's fair. Like when me and Lily both wanted the blue crayon, I smiled. Something like that. But no matter what happens in court, you will always be safe with me. And with Mommy, too. Emma nodded seriously, then returned to her coloring. As I stood stirring the sauce, I made a silent vow to myself. No more compromise. No more believing Lauren might suddenly become reasonable. The woman I'd married was gone, if she'd ever really existed at all. In her place was someone who would burn down our family just to collect the insurance. I wouldn't let her. 6 weeks felt like both a lifetime and an instant. The weight of everything we needed to document, prepare, and organize became my second job. Every night after tucking Emma in, I'd sit at the kitchen table with folders spread out, tracking withdrawals, transfers, and the paper trail that painted a perfect portrait of Lauren's betrayal. Priya Shah was nothing short of brilliant. She'd call me at odd hours, her voice animated as she uncovered yet another transaction. "Daniel, I've got it," she said one evening while I was washing dishes. 19 separate transfers from your joint accounts. 3 cash withdrawals over $5,000 each. 2 payments to Marble Heart labeled as consulting, which, by the way, doesn't exist as a real company except on paper. I dried my hands on a kitchen towel. "Can you prove the money went to Jason?" "Better," Priya said. "I can prove it went to vacations with Jason. The Vail trip receipts match the dates of the second Marble Heart payment exactly. Same dollar amount, down to the cent. Those details mattered. Every receipt, every timestamp built our case like laying bricks in a wall Lauren couldn't climb over or break through. The subpoenas went out next. Kara Mitchell, Lauren's friend who had briefly let Lauren funnel money through her account, was the first to crack. Anna told me Kara had shown up to her deposition sweating, nervous, looking anywhere but at the stenographer. "She confirmed everything," Anna said, passing me the transcript in her office. Under oath, she admitted Lauren asked her to hold some money temporarily, and then move it back to Lauren's personal account once the divorce was filed. I flipped through the pages. Did she know why? She claims she didn't at first, but figured it out. Then she got scared about legal consequences. Anna tapped the transcript. Page 16. She tried to back out, and Lauren threatened to tell Kara's husband about some weekend in Miami she didn't want him knowing about. Jason Cole proved harder to pin down. He dodged service for nearly 2 weeks until our process server caught him walking to his car outside his office building, name badge still clipped to his shirt. "You've been served," were the only words Jason needed to hear to make his face turn ashen. The documents detailed his involvement. Hotel receipts with both names, jewelry store purchases matching transfers from our joint account, airline tickets showing them traveling together while I thought Lauren was visiting her sister. At home, I focused on keeping Emma's world as stable as possible. Saturday mornings were for pancakes, chocolate chip with whipped cream and strawberries, just how she liked them. I walked her to school, packed her lunches, and read her bedtime stories, all while Lauren grew increasingly erratic. She'd slam doors when she came home, make phone calls at midnight that I could hear through the walls, and leave notes about Emma's schedule that were really just attempts to document parenting failures that didn't exist. I kept a log of everything without responding directly. When she'd tried to bait me into arguments, I'd simply say, "Please send any concerns in an email," and walk away. Emma noticed the tension, of course. How could she not? One night after Lauren had stormed out following another failed attempt to provoke me, Emma looked up from her dinner. "Is Mommy mad at the house?" she asked. I smiled gently. Sometimes grown-ups have big feelings they don't know how to handle. "Like when I get really angry and have to count to 10? "Exactly like that," I said, squeezing her hand. The day before trial, Anna prepared me for direct testimony in her office. We sat across from each other, files stacked between us. "Remember," she said, "just answer what's asked. Don't volunteer information. Don't get emotional, even when they try to make you angry." I nodded. "And when Lauren testifies? You look at me or the judge, not at her. Your face stays neutral." That night, after everyone was asleep, I stood in Emma's doorway watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. The nightlight cast soft shadows across her room, illuminating the stuffed bunny clutched in her arms, the one I'd given her on her 4th birthday. "I promise," I whispered, though she couldn't hear me, "no one is taking you away. Not ever." The next morning, I straightened my tie in the mirror. I wasn't a suit guy normally, but today mattered. I picked up the binder we'd prepared, every bank statement, every email, every log entry, and headed for the front door. It was time to end this. The morning air felt electric as I entered Judge McCarthy's courtroom. Anna walked beside me, her dark suit crisp, her expression calm. The wooden benches were empty except for our forensic accountant Priya Shah, who sat with her laptop and files. Across the aisle, Lauren arrived with Cheryl Whitman. Lauren wore a cream-colored blouse I'd never seen before and kept her eyes downcast, a dramatic shift from her usual confident stance. Judge McCarthy entered promptly at 9, his gray hair neatly combed, reading glasses perched on his nose. "Hayes versus Hayes. Final hearing," the bailiff announced. The judge looked over his notes. "We'll proceed with petitioner's case first." Anna called me to the stand. As I was sworn in, I caught Lauren's eyes for just a moment. Cold, calculating, watching for weakness. I gave her nothing. "Mr. Hayes," Anna began, "please describe your occupation and income." I spoke clearly about my contracting business, the renovation shops I'd built and sold, and my current development company. Numbers flowed from memory. Annual income, business growth, assets acquired before marriage, investments made since. "And who handles Emma's daily needs?" Anna continued. "I do. I make her breakfast each morning, pack her lunch, take her to school 3 days a week, and pick her up 4 days. I attend her parent-teacher conferences, doctor appointments, and handle bedtime routines." Anna introduced exhibits methodically. School sign-in sheets with my signature, medical records listing me as the accompanying parent, text messages showing Lauren canceling her parenting time. With each piece of evidence, I felt the narrative strengthening. "And the Riverview Development Project?" Anna asked. "I purchased the land 2 years before our marriage, with profits from my 3rd renovation shop. Construction began during our marriage, but using capital secured through my pre-marital business accounts, all documented in the prenuptial agreement." The questioning continued for nearly an hour. I remained steady, even when Cheryl's objections interrupted. Judge McCarthy overruled most of them, his pen scratching notes. When Anna finished, Cheryl approached for cross-examination. "Mr. Hayes," she began with exaggerated warmth, "isn't it true that Lauren sacrificed her career to support your business success?" "No," I replied. "Lauren worked in marketing for 11 months before we married. She quit 6 months after the wedding, saying she wanted to explore options. She never pursued another job." Cheryl tried different angles, but couldn't shake my answers because they were simple truth backed by documents. When she finished, I stepped down feeling solid. Next came Priya Shah. She walked to the stand with her laptop, connecting it to the courtroom display. Charts appeared showing flow of funds from our joint accounts to Lauren's hidden accounts, then to Marble Heart LLC and Kara Mitchell. "Based on your forensic analysis," Anna asked, "what happened to the money transferred from the joint marital accounts?" Priya clicked through slides with clinical precision. Approximately $249,700 was moved from joint accounts to Ms. Hayes' separate account over a 3-month period. From there, $118,600 went to Marble Heart LLC for alleged consulting. $76,400 was withdrawn in cash, and $54,700 was transferred to Kara Mitchell's account, which was then moved back to Lauren Hayes' personal account 2 days later. "Did you find evidence of what these funds purchased?" "Yes." Another slide appeared showing credit card statements. Hotel charges at the Grand Hyatt, airline tickets to Vail, jewelry purchases at Tiffany's, and restaurant charges averaging $300 per meal. Were any of these purchases for Emma's benefit or household necessities? "No," Priya answered simply. When Lauren finally took the stand, her transformation was complete. Gone was the woman who'd screamed at me in our kitchen. This Lauren dabbed at her eyes, spoke softly, and referred to our beautiful daughter repeatedly. "I just wanted what was fair," she told Cheryl, voice trembling. "Daniel controlled everything, the money, the business decisions. I felt trapped." But Anna's cross-examination stripped away the performance. "Ms. Hayes," Anna began, "let's discuss the $4,900 transfer from the household account labeled for food. Please explain what food items cost nearly $5,000. Lauren shifted in her seat. "It wasn't just food. It was household supplies." Anna displayed the bank record. "The memo line, written by you, says food. What food did you purchase?" "I don't recall specifically." "Did you produce any receipts for these purchases during discovery?" "No, I didn't keep them." Anna methodically walked through each transfer, each lie, each contradiction. Lauren's answers grew increasingly vague and defensive. When Anna showed the video disproving the restraining order allegation, Lauren stared at her hands. "So there was no incident where Mr. Hayes shoved you, correct?" Lauren's voice was barely audible. "I felt threatened." "By what specifically?" "By the situation." Judge McCarthy called a recess after Lauren's testimony. In the hallway, Lauren approached me with Cheryl hovering protectively behind her. "Dan," she whispered urgently, "we need to settle this. 200,000 and I'll walk away. Please." I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but cool detachment. "No," I said simply. "You lied to take my daughter. You stole. You get nothing." Her face hardened. "You'll regret this." "I already regret the day I met you." The bailiff called us back. We returned to the courtroom and took our seats. Judge McCarthy adjusted his glasses, arranged his notes, and looked up, ready to deliver his ruling. Judge McCarthy cleared his throat, organizing the papers before him. The courtroom fell silent. I could feel Lauren's eyes on me, but I kept my gaze fixed on the judge. This was it, the moment that would determine everything. Having considered all testimony and evidence presented, the court is prepared to issue its ruling. Judge McCarthy began, his voice measured and authoritative. First, regarding the prenuptial agreement executed by both parties prior to marriage. The court finds this agreement valid and enforceable. Ms. Hayes signed this document with independent legal counsel, and the terms were clear and unambiguous. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Foundation secured. Regarding the Riverview Development Project, he continued, the court acknowledges this asset was developed during the marriage. However, the court also recognizes that initial capital came from Mr. Hayes's premarital business, as documented in the prenuptial agreement. Further, the court must address the significant dissipation of marital assets by Ms. Hayes. I glanced at Lauren. Her face had gone rigid, fingers digging into the edge of the table. The forensic accounting presented by Ms. Shaw demonstrates a clear pattern of improper transfers and concealment of funds. The court finds that Ms. Hayes transferred $249,700 from joint accounts without consent and for non-marital purposes. These funds were not used for household expenses or for the benefit of the minor child. Judge McCarthy paused, taking a sip of water before continuing. Therefore, the court orders that these funds be credited back to Mr. Hayes in the final distribution. Additionally, Ms. Hayes will be responsible for reimbursing Mr. Hayes for 70% of his reasonable attorney's fees and costs, given the extensive litigation necessitated by her actions. Lauren visibly flinched. Cheryl leaned over to whisper something, but Lauren brushed her off. Now, regarding custody of the minor child, Emma Hayes. The judge's tone softened slightly. The court finds that joint legal custody remains appropriate. However, Mr. Hayes will maintain primary physical custody, with Ms. Hayes receiving visitation on alternating weekends and one evening per week. My chest tightened. This was the part that mattered most. Additionally, Judge McCarthy continued, his expression stern, the court finds Ms. Hayes's allegations of physical abuse not credible. The video evidence directly contradicted her sworn testimony. The court takes false allegations extremely seriously, particularly when they impact custody matters. He looked directly at Lauren now. Ms. Hayes's visitation will initially be supervised for a period of 60 days, after which the court will reassess based on compliance and completion of court-ordered counseling. The court will not tolerate misuse of the legal system as a negotiation tactic. I exhaled slowly, realizing I'd been holding my breath. It was over. We'd won. Every single point. This court is adjourned, Judge McCarthy concluded, gathering his papers. The bailiff called for everyone to rise as the judge exited. When I looked across the aisle, Lauren sat motionless, her face drained of color. She gripped Cheryl's arm, whispering urgently. Anna touched my shoulder, a rare smile crossing her face. "We did it," she said quietly. Outside the courthouse, the late afternoon sun felt impossibly bright. I stood on the steps, breathing in fresh air that suddenly tasted different. Cleaner somehow. Anna was discussing next steps with our team when Lauren approached, Cheryl trailing behind her. "You've made a mistake," Lauren said, her voice low and dangerous. "I'll make this public. I'll tell everyone what you did." I studied her face. This woman I'd once loved, once built dreams with, and felt nothing but tired resolve. "No," I replied evenly. "You already tried that in private where it counts, and you lost." I turned away from her, walking toward my car. I heard Cheryl calling after me, something about appeals and motions, but I didn't look back. There was nothing left to say. In my car, I gripped the steering wheel with both hands, letting the reality settle into my bones. It was over. I had protected Emma. I had protected what I'd built. The weight of months of tension suddenly lifted, leaving me hollow with exhaustion and relief. I rested my forehead against the steering wheel for a moment, allowing myself this private acknowledgement of what we'd just survived. Then I started the engine and drove home in silence, ready to begin rebuilding what Lauren had tried to destroy. 6 months after the final hearing, I stood in the backyard watching Emma dig small holes for tomato seedlings. The spring air carried the scent of fresh soil and possibility. We'd torn out the azaleas last month, Lauren's pride and joy, and replaced them with a vegetable garden that would actually feed us. "Is this deep enough, Dad?" Emma asked, her small hands cupped around a trowel. I crouched beside her, checking the depth. "Perfect. Remember how we measured it against your finger?" She nodded seriously, her face intense with concentration, as she gently placed the seedling in the hole. At 6, she approached gardening with the same determination she brought to her spelling homework. "Now we give it water so it can grow big and strong," she recited, reaching for the child-sized watering can. I watched her, this resilient little person who had weathered a storm she didn't create. The courts, the lawyers, the accusations, none of it had broken her spirit. Kids are tougher than we give them credit for, especially when you keep them anchored with routines and honest answers. Every Saturday morning now followed the same rhythm. Emma would climb onto her stool at the kitchen counter, tell me which pancake shapes to make, then race outside to check if our tomatoes had grown overnight. Simple joys that had become sacred in their ordinariness. The house felt different now, quieter in a good way. No more hushed arguments behind bedroom doors or tense silences stretched across dinner tables. Just the everyday sounds of a home finding its balance again. Riverview had closed last month, the final check landing in my account with a number that still didn't seem real. The first thing I did was meet with a trust attorney Anna recommended, setting up Emma's future so that no one, not even me, could ever use her as leverage again. The second thing I did was pay off the mortgage on the house, turning Lauren's demand for its sale into nothing but faded ink on dismissed court filings. Lauren moved into a small rental apartment across town after the court ordered her to return the dissipated funds and pay a portion of my legal fees. The apartment complex had vinyl siding and metal railings, a far cry from the stone front homes she'd browsed in magazines. She worked the front desk at a salon now, answering phones and booking appointments. I didn't take satisfaction in her downfall exactly, but I didn't lose sleep over it either. Jason didn't stick around for the part where the credit cards stopped working. Last I heard, he'd transferred to a new branch in another city. Funny how quickly soulmates disappear when the lifestyle they enjoyed vanishes. The social circle that had once validated Lauren's choices grew quiet too. Friends who had nodded sympathetically over wine when she complained about me weren't so supportive when asked to cover lunch checks or loan cash for rent. Those women had been spectators to our marriage, not investors in Lauren's future. Emma visited Lauren on the court-approved schedule, first under supervision, then alone once Lauren demonstrated she could follow rules. The exchanges were civil now, borderline cordial. Without an audience to perform for, Lauren had little reason to create drama. She was learning to be a mother without being my wife, a distinction she'd never understood before. I don't hate her. Hate would mean giving her space in a life I rebuilt without her. But I don't trust her either. Trust is earned through consistent actions, not convenient apologies. If you've been betrayed, you know the truth I live by now. Justice isn't loud, it's precise. I didn't win because I screamed louder than Lauren. I won because I refused to be her victim. I matched her manipulation with evidence, and I chose my daughter over my pride. The strangest part is realizing how much I've changed. The man who received those papers on the porch was looking for reasons why his wife stopped loving him. The man planting tomatoes with his daughter understands that some questions don't deserve answers. Lauren tried to steal millions from me in divorce. In the end, she left with nothing she didn't earn, and I kept everything that matters.